This is the Sumo crab apple tree that I added to my bonsai collection in late spring of this year. And now that the leaves have fallen, it's the ideal opportunity to take a look at that tree, examine the structure and to make some decisions about the future design of the tree. But keep watching, because not only am I going to talk you through my decisions for this tree, I'm also going to explain to you how you can deal with juvenile growth and make your bonsai trees look more mature. Let's go. I added this tree to my collection in late spring of 2024, and it's a tree which I bought from Shocker Bonsai. And you can see it's got a huge thick trunk where this tree was developed and grown in the ground, and also it had a severe trunk chop performed on it just here. And you can see the result of that severe trunk chop is it's thrown out all of this growth. The problem is that most of this growth is growing directly upwards, which is what you would expect from juvenile growth on a tree. This crabapple has a beautifully thick, ground developed trunk, which gives it a sense of age and character. However, as you can see, it's currently dominated by juvenile upward growing shoots. To transform this into a convincing bonsai, we'll need to prune these shoots back and begin shaping the branches into a more horizontal, mature form. Before we dive into the pruning, let's talk about why these new shoots are growing the way that they do. The key player here is a plant hormone called Auxin. Auxin is produced in the growing tips and shoots and inhibits the growth of buds further back along the branch. This is what's known as apical dominance. This hormonal process encourages long, upward growth as the tree focuses its energy on searching for light. While this is great for a tree in nature, it's less than ideal for bonsai, where we aim to create a compact, balanced structure. You can see that in nature, younger trees will have a more upward growing habit, and as they mature, due to the weight of those branches start to grow more horizontally. And that's what we're trying to imitate in our bonsai to give the impression of age and also size. Directional pruning is a technique used to guide the growth of a plant in a specific direction by selectively cutting or removing branches. When you prune above a bud that is growing in the desired direction, the plant will prioritize growth towards that bud as it becomes the dominant growing point. This method encourages new growth to follow the direction you want, allowing you to shape the plant's structure and form according to your preferences. So let's identify which branches to prune. I'll start by removing any overly long vertical shoots that disrupt the silhouette of the tree. Next, I'll trim back to buds that are pointing in the direction I want to grow. It's currently November or late autumn in the UK, and we're about to enter winter. And although I'm doing structural pruning on the tree, I'm avoiding removing any significant branches at this time. And the reason for that is because the tree is slowed down and its metabolic processes have become dormant, it's unlikely to do any significant healing between now and when those processes restart in spring. What that means is any open wounds won't heal, and that provides an opportunity for diseases and pathogens to enter the tree. And so those types of cuts would probably be better done in very early spring. A lot of the time, bonsai development is about reducing flaws in your tree and working purposefully over a number of growing seasons to move the tree in the designed direction. When it comes to pruning our bonsai, we should always initially start with any dead or diseased parts of the tree. And I have got a branch here which you can see is loose, and so I'm going to remove that first. It's a matter of reducing the flaws in the tree at this point and giving it a more natural flow. So as I go around the tree, for example, I can see I've got bunches of branches that are all coming out of the same place that need separating. I've also got branches which are coming out from awkward spots, such as this one, which is coming out of a bend in the tree. It's on the inside of the bend, so that's really not an appropriate spot for it. As I come around the back of the tree, I've got a number of branches all emerging from the same spot in the tree, and whilst that might be okay at the moment, as the tree develops, those are going to present us with problems, so it's better to reduce the number of those now. We've also got quite a lot of upward growth which we need to reduce, and what I plan to do is to bring some of this into a more horizontal plane using wire. Initially what I'm expecting is that the tree might look a little bit bare, but over time, and particularly over additional growing seasons, we will start to develop the branching and the canopy on this tree. Because we've got quite a large cut at this point, we've removed what would have been the apex of the tree. So it looks like I'm going to have to use this particular growth and this particular branch here as the new apex. And what I want to do eventually is to bring the branches back over the top of the tree. I've also got some odd branches in there that I need to remove. Let's get to those first, and let's start clearing up the design so we've got a better idea of what we've got left to work with. I'm just coming in here and taking that awkward branch out. We've got this growth coming out of the crotch of the tree, or the inside of a bend, and that's quite uncomfortable growth, so we're going to remove that too to avoid any issues in the future. Got a dead branch in there which I'm just going to take out. We've got an awkward inward growing branch here that's growing back towards the centre of the tree, so I'm going to take that one out. Some of this branching is a little bit inelegant, and that's because of this sort of coarse growth habit which is typical of crabapple trees. And I think this branch here, for example, comes out of the side and comes back over this way. It's a little bit awkward looking, but I think if I was to remove all of that branch, we're left with a big void in the tree at this point. So I'm not proposing on removing that just at the moment. We've got 3 branches here, which is a little bit awkward. So I'm going to come in and remove one of those, and I think I'll actually remove this lower branch there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some wire and bring these branches down a little bit. If I just swing the tree round a bit, I've got a number of branches. In particular, I've got 2 branches which are emerging very close to each other, just there. And what I'd like to do is separate those out so it becomes clearly a fork in the tree. There's a branch in the middle there which I think I need to remove. And then I need to apply some wire in there to try and separate those out a bit. I've also got the same thing happening here, and I think what I might actually do is remove the inner branch there. And we've got this little branch which is crossing over in front there as well, which I'm just going to take out, and potentially the same on the other side, just there. There's a stub from a previous pruning, which I'm just going to remove there. I'm avoiding removing any really thick branches at this time of the year. I think it's preferable to do that kind of thing in early spring as the metabolic processes of the tree start back up and it's able to heal those wounds much quicker at that time. What I don't want is any large wounds sat open in the damp and the cold of the several winter months. Fortunately, the pruning I'm doing is all fairly small branches at this stage. So in this portion of the tree, I've got quite a congested number of branches in there, and I need to reduce some of those down in terms of the number of branches. And make the separation of this fork here much clearer on the tree. Just on the front of the tree here, we've got this awkward situation where we've got branches which are crossing. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply wire to actually separate those out into 3 separate branches. One of the things you might want to bear in mind when you're pruning, particularly fruit trees at this time of year, is that what you're pruning away may well be the flowers for next year. Because this is a relatively new tree in my collection and I'm concentrating on the styling at the moment, I'm not particularly concerned about sacrificing the flowers and the crab apples on this tree in this coming season. I will reap the benefits of the work that I'm doing now in coming growing seasons, as the tree puts all of the energy next year into developing new branching and foliage. As we've seen, Auxin is present in the growing tips of branches. This hormonal process encourages long upward growth as the tree focuses its energy on reaching for the light. By pruning back these shoots, we'll interrupt the flow of Auxin and allow dormant buds further down the branch to develop. This will encourage a denser, more compact branch structure. As we continue this process over subsequent growing seasons, branches will continue to divide and subdivide. 2 will become 4, 4 will become 8, 8 will become 16. What I want to do now is just go back and trim back some of this longer growth to maybe 2 buds to encourage some ramification on the tree. So if I take this branch as an example, the Auxin is present in the end of that growth, and that will cause this to continue to grow outwards from the tree and also suppress the growth of these buds further back. However, if I remove that, say there, what I'm expecting is that these buds behind where I've made the cut will now be activated and will grow out as branches. So where I had 1 branch growing up, 1 long branch, I'm now going to potentially have 2 new branches coming out of there. And I just want to repeat that process around the tree in the longer growth. And I want to preserve 2 buds on all of the growth, so that where I've got 1 branch, I'm potentially now going to have 2. If I'm selective about where I do my pruning, I can determine which direction that branch might grow in future. So here, for example, we've got a bud there, we've got a bud there. If I was to cut there, then I'm expecting that bud to develop out that way. If I do the cut there, then I'm expecting any future growth to come out in this direction. Because what I'm wanting on this tree is more horizontal growth, it's more useful if I can find buds that are on the lower portion of the branch rather than the upper portion. and that will help cause the growth to develop horizontally rather than vertically. So on this branch here, for example, I've got a bud here, and I've got a number of buds on the top part of the branch, and if I trim the branch there, I'm now expecting the lower bud to grow outwards in this direction, which is exactly what I'm wanting. I'm just now going to repeat this process around the tree. And by doing so, what I'm hoping to do is increase the branching in the future growing season. So where I've got one branch at the moment, I'll develop two, hopefully growing in the direction that I desire. I've got some particularly long growth here that I want to deal with. I'm just going to cut that back to there for the time being, and then I'm going to wire that downwards and then see how that develops in the coming growing season. I'm still not sure about this awkward junction. I'm just concerned that if I remove all of that, then I've got a void in this area and there's nothing to cover. What I'm hoping is that in future I'll be able to bring some branches from here back over the top of the tree to try and create the canopy. Pruning is only part of the process. I'll also be using wiring to try and bring some of the branches more into a horizontal plane to give that impression of age. Wiring allows us to bend and set the branches into the desired shape whilst they're still pliable. I'm also taking the opportunity to position the branches in a more horizontal plane at the same time. So there we go. Rather than two branches which are very close and both growing one above the other, we've now got a very definite fork there. And I'm just going to go around the tree and do similar sorts of operations, both separating the branches and also bringing them in a more downward growing aspect. Transforming raw material into a bonsai is a gradual process that requires patience and understanding of the tree's natural growth habits. By working with the tree's biology and understanding how hormones like auxin influence growth, we can guide its development into a stunning bonsai. So here we are as the light starts to fail, and what I've done is I've tried to set this tree up for a good growing season next year, which will give us increased ramification and also position several of the branches in a more horizontal growing situation. What I will need to do over coming seasons is to develop the ramification on this canopy and try and rebuild that canopy over the top of the tree. With the pruning and wiring complete, this tree now has a much more refined structure. The branches have a more horizontal flow and the silhouette is beginning to take shape. Over time, the tree will respond to these adjustments and will continue refining it in future seasons. I hope you found that useful or interesting, and you might want to check out one of these videos next. Thank you.